Hello everyone, this is my promised video that I have promised you that I will upload a video covering all the topics that you might confront in your quiz one. So the first chapter that I'm going to discuss or talk about is the definition of contract and the essential elements of a contract. I will define what is a contract by pointing out the necessary elements that a contract must possess in order for it to be a contract. So to define a contract is an agreement or is a promise which is enforceable by the law. It means when you are when you make a promise and if you violate that, you might end up in legal complications, or you might end up in any sort of legal problems. Then we will call that to be a contract. So any promise that is enforceable by the law is contract. So at first you need to understand there are so many promises that we make in our lives that are not actually contract, because those promises, if broken, are not enforceable by the law. For example, if your dad promises you to bring a pizza for you while coming back from the office, and if he doesn't do that, you cannot sue him, because this was a promise. Even though this was a promise, it is not enforceable by the law. Why it is not enforceable by the law? This is what I will talk about in my video, and I will try to point out the elements that a promise must possess in order for it to be a contract. So what about your friend who promised you to give you his PS4 but he actually denies eventually? So can you sue him? What about your fiance who actually promised you to marry you, but then she said she's not interested in you anymore? So can you sue him? Can you sue her or sue him? I mean, whatever that is. So this is actually the main topic. So for a contract to be enforceable, or for a promise to be enforceable, it must have these 8 elements, which are offer and acceptance, intention to create a legal relationship, consideration, capacity, legality, free consent, certainty, possibility of performance. I have actually discussed about these topics repeatedly in the first 2 classes, but for who actually showed up after the first 3 classes or after the ad drops, you might be benefited from this video. So I will discuss about these elements one by one. The first one is offer and acceptance. So for a promise to be enforceable by the law, it must start with an offer and also an acceptance. This is really easy to understand, simple as you want. If you offer someone to give you something, and he agrees to do that, then this is you actually made the offer and he actually made the acceptance. For example, when you go to a shop and want to buy a mobile phone, for example, and you offer him to pay 20,000 taka for that particular mobile phone, and if he says okay, I'm okay with it, then he makes the acceptance. So a promise must start with an offer and acceptance to be considered as a contract. The second one is supposed to be intention to create a legal relationship, and I will talk about it later, just because of the complexity or just because of the importance it actually holds in terms of understanding. So the consideration is simple, as you know, most of you know that consideration means give and take. So for the parties that are concerned in a promise must gain something and give something. So what will happen if from this example you can see that your friend promised you to give his PS4, but then he denies. And here, if you sue your friend, sue means if you go to the court and complain against your friend, this is not going to hold any water, because in this case you were supposed to get the PS4. But what about your friend? Was he supposed to get anything from you? We mention any monetary value in this example? No. So it means in this case the consideration was not present. So it actually tries to imply that both the parties must gain something and give something. So if one party is benefited from the particular agreement or promise, then there will be no consideration. Going back to our example of purchasing or buying a mobile phone, here the consideration, just think about this. You are giving the shopkeeper 20,000 taka and he is giving you the mobile phone. Here your consideration is the mobile phone and his consideration is the 20,000 taka. But in the case of the example of your friend giving you a PS4, in this case you were supposed to get only you were supposed to get the PS4, but what about him? He was not supposed to get anything, so there was no consideration. So without consideration, a contract is not going to be enforceable by the law. So it is, I think, easy to understand. Here again you say, again you see that your dad promised you to provide you with something. He promised you to promised you to bring a pizza for you. This was I mean, you are going to get the pizza from your dad, but what about your dad? What was his consideration? Was he supposed to get anything from you? No, it means this is not a legal promise. So I want to highlight on the point that a gift is not a contract. Okay, so if someone say gives you something or promises to give you something as a gift and then he doesn't do that, you cannot sue him, because in this case the consideration was not present. And the third one that we are talking about is the capacity. So the parties should be capable in any promise, and for it to be legally enforceable, the involved or concerned parties must have capacity. It means none of these parties can be lunatics, they cannot be minors. Here I actually showed a picture of a baby, but it actually means that it actually tries to refer to the age limit that that must be considered when while getting into a contract. So you cannot get into any contract with anyone who is less than 18 years old. And here you can say someone who is drunk and who is not in his sane mind, you cannot get into any contract with him. So I gave you an example like that. What if in the 31st night you got drunk and you were so drunk that you could not move and you had to go home? There was your friend who was like kind of a bit clever, and he told you that he will help you. He will help you to go back to your home, and he will drive your car because you are not in any state to drive. But you must promise him that tomorrow, when in the morning, you will give him your car. So he actually captured the whole thing. He started recording the scene, and he wanted to say you that you will give him your car in the next morning, just because he is helping you to get back to your home. In this case, this is not going to hold any water, because no contract is enforceable by the law when one of these parties were under any kind of influence of any drugs. So the capacity of the parties must be met. The capacities that we try to refer by the word capacity, we try to refer to the terms that the parties, none of the parties can be lunatics, minor, or drunk. So third one is the legality of the object. So what if you hold on a second. What if you want to um, buy some kind of drugs, and you gave the drug dealer a good amount of money? He promised you to provide you or give you some kind of drugs, and then he actually didn't um, keep his promise. So what if the drug dealer takes that money from you and just disappears? Can you sue him? No, you cannot, because here the legality of the object was questionable, and drugs are illegal in our country or in our economy. So you cannot sue someone for a contract, for violating a contract that actually was about something that is illegal in that particular economy. Here in this example, you can see that Mr. Walter Black, sorry, Walter Walter White or Heisenberg, he received a good amount of money from Tuco Salamanca, and he promised to give or provide Tuco Salamanca with a good amount of methamphetamine. What if Walter White disappeared just by taking this money? Could Tuco Salamanca sue him? No, because the object that they had been making the deal about was illegal. Here, what if you go to a serial killer and ask someone to and ask them to kill someone, and what if they take your money and don't kill that person you told them to kill? Will you be able to sue them? No, because the legality was questionable here. So another thing is voluntary consent. It actually tries to imply that consents of the parties. Consents means they're being, I mean, they're saying yes, or they're agreeing with you. So here this consent must be voluntary. It means you cannot force someone to consent to something, or you cannot intimidate someone to consent to your offer. So we talked about offer and acceptance. So what if you are some kind of very influential person and you make someone an offer, and he was under the influence, or he was kind of intimidated by your presence there, and he actually said yes, even though he actually didn't mean to say yes, but he said yes because of the kind of scenario situation that he was in. And after agreeing to your offer, if he doesn't perform the task, and if he can prove that in the court that he was under any kind of intimidation, or he was under any kind of coercion or any kind of threat, then this is not going to hold water. This agreement or this promise will not be enforceable by the law. Here you can see the example of Vito Corleone, where he said that I will make you an offer that you cannot refuse. It means there is a sense of intimidation. The person who had been given that offer was intimidated by his words. Here you can see clearly that the acceptance was not voluntary. So moving forward to the next part, here it's certainty. You probably remember what actually certainty meant. It means the term of the contracts must be objective. I mean, it must be certain, it must be objective, it must be uh, determinable. It means if you say someone that I will, if you help me, or if you do this for me, I will give you a very beautiful reward. And what if after helping him he doesn't give you something beautiful? Can you sue him? No, you cannot, because a very beautiful reward means nothing. It needs to be definite. What beautiful reward? Is it a car? Is it a jewelry? Is it something like that? So in that case, I try to mean is that what I try to mean is that the contract or the promise and the terms of the promise must be definite. Here you can see a A agrees to sell B 100 tons of oil. Here A actually didn't clarify what kind of, what type of, or what categories or what kinds of oil A is going to provide B with. A oil can be kerosene, coconut, or anything, right? So this is where you can see that the promise or the agreement was not certain. The term of the promise was not certain, so this is not going to be enforceable by the law. Then the possibility of performance. So if you promise someone to bring the moon for her, and if you are not able to do that, and I mean, this is not enforceable by the law, even though you promised your girlfriend to bring the moon for her. But I mean, even though this is a promise, this is not going to hold water, because this is something that you are not supposed to be able to perform, right? And the same goes for black magics. If you give some kind of ফকির, আমরা তো ফকিরই বলি নাকি, অথবা যারা ব্ল্যাক ম্যাজিক করে, অথবা কি বলে, ওঝা, কবিরাজ. So if you give him some money, and or if you give him some money and some kind of, যে আপনার বলছিলাম আপনার গার্লফ্রেন্ডের চুল, and if you tell him to do something so that that girl that you are in love with will also love you back, and after receiving the money he cannot do that, and you cannot sue him, even though there was a promise that if you give him that money he will make sure that the girl you are in love with will love you back. And even though this was a very legit promise, but this is not going to be enforceable, just because that fakir or that hujur or so not Hujur, actually Hujur are the good people, that Kobiraj is not likely or is not supposed to be able to perform this. Okay, so when the ability to perform or the ability to possibility to perform is under question or is questionable, then you cannot sue someone for not doing that. So, and I also told you that I will talk about another thing, that is the intention to create legal relation. This is like a kind of a bit vague. Think like this: when you promise your friend that you are going to watch a movie with him, and then you back off, can he sue you? No, he cannot sue you, because when you made the promise, you did not have that in your mind that at the time of the violation of the promise you might end up in a legal problem. So to make it clear or to make it simple, I will give you another example. So for example, you met Mushfiqur Rahim and you told him to visit your home in the village. So he said, okay, I will. Mushfiqur Rahim promised you that he will visit your house in the village. So you went back to your village and you told everyone that Mushfiqur Rahim is coming to visit me, and you announced the news to the whole population of your village. All you spent a huge amount of money for his visit. You invited thousands of people, and you spent like 10 lakh taka for the arrangement. And what if he doesn't come back? What if he doesn't come? Can you sue Mushfiqur Rahim? No, actually cannot, because when Mushfiqur Rahim gave you this promise, he actually did not have that idea in his mind that at the time of violation of this promise, or if he cannot keep his promise, then you might sue him. He did not have that idea in his mind. That is what we try to mean by intention to create legal relationship. It means at the time of promise, if something pops up in your mind or some idea pops some or one the idea that pops up in your mind, that at the time of the violation of this contract you might be or you might end up in a legal problem or in a jail or something like that, then we will say that you had the legal intention to create legal relationship. What about marriage? When we when we marry someone, right? When we get married, we know that we are going to bind ourselves in some legal complexities, right? Legal duties, obligation, right? So after marriage, if you do something that violates the contract, then you might be in problem, because you had the legal intention, you had the intention to create a legal relationship. What about buying that mobile phone? Just going back to our mobile phone example, when you made the offer to the shopkeeper that you are going to give him 20,000 taka, and he gave his acceptance by saying yes, and when you exchanged the elements, like you gave him the money and he gave you the mobile phone, both of you knew that if there is anything that is not true about your deal, or I mean, if there is something wrong, that you might be in some legal problems. For example, what if the mobile phone that he gave you is like a stolen mobile phone, or is not a new mobile phone, or is a copy mobile phone? Then you can sue him, because when both of you entered into that particular contract, you had that idea in your mind that at the time of violation you might face some problem. And also from your side, what if you gave him some fake notes? Yeah, then you are going to be in problem, because that there was some kind of legal relationship. But in our daily lives, in our family lives, in our social lives, we make so many promises, but those are not enforceable because we do not actually intend to create an illegal relationship by those promises. এই জন্য আপনার বাবা যখন আপনাকে বলবে যে পিজা নিয়ে আসবে কিন্তু আনে না শেষমেশ, তখন তাকে তারা মামলা করতে পারবে না, কারণ তখন বোঝা যায় আপনার বাবা যখন আপনাকে প্রমিসটা করেছিল তার মাথায় কোনো লিগাল ইন্টেনশন ছিল না, ইন্টেনশন ছিল না, অথবা তার মাথায় এই আইডিয়াটি আসে নাই যে আপনি যদি না করেন, সে যদি এই প্রমিসটা না রাখে, তাহলে আপনি তাহলে মামলা করতে পারেন। সেমভাবে আপনারা যখন প্রেম করেন, আপনার গার্লফ্রেন্ড, আপনারা যখন একসাথে প্রেম করেন, তখন কিন্তু আপনারা খুব ভালো থাকেন, কিন্তু যখন ব্রেকআপ করে ফেলেন, যেই মানুষটা ব্রেকআপ করে, বয়ফ্রেন্ড হোক গার্লফ্রেন্ড হোক, আপনারা কি তাদের নামে মামলা করতে পারেন? পারেন না, বিকজ ওয়েন ইউ গট ইন টু দিস রিলেশনশিপ ইউ ডিড নট হ্যাভ দ্য আইডিয়া অর দ্যাট আইডিয়া ইন ইউর মাইন্ড যে আপনার এখানে ব্রেকআপ করলে ইউ মাইট end up in some legal problem. So this is the first topic, and I will shortly talk about the types of the contracts. Yeah, wait a bit. This is not the types of contracts. So this is our second slide, where I will try to talk about the types of the contracts. And this is not going to be hard, but just try to keep your focus so that you can understand from this. So there are many types of contracts. I will talk about some of them, like implied, quasi, and express. So this is not the slide that I probably have provided you with, because this is an incomplete slide. Okay, I will make another video to talk about this shortly. So thank you for your participation. Okay.